How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. And unfortunately, for the first news topic in today's video, Sony updated a feature and made it better on the PS5, but it's been broken since they updated it, and it's not PlayStation Stars. It's actually something very essential. Then we got to look at the Death Stranding 2 sales figures. They're looking a little weird, but if you dig into it, it actually looks pretty good. And finally, we got more details on Resident Evil Requiem. I'm just going to keep covering this game because I'm so damn excited for it. Thank you for listening and watching. I really appreciate it. So yeah, let's jump into the first news story here, and we're going to go back a couple months to a PlayStation 5 update that added a seemingly minor feature but was actually really good. So they updated the wishlist feature on the PlayStation 5, which I know doesn't seem like the craziest or most essential thing to have on your console, but a lot of people use wish lists as sales trackers. So like I use it on Steam all the time. If I see an indie game that I want to keep track of, because you know, they say coming soon on a lot of indie games, and it's like it's announced in 2022, and then in 2025 they're like, I'm still working on it. So you use the wish list to keep track of games that you might have forgotten about in the years that it takes to make them, or if you are waiting for a sale on a game like Persona 5 Royal. I bought Persona 5's collector's edition, and I wasn't immediately hooked by that game. So when Royal came out, I was like, I'm not going to pay full price for this, even if it is just a little bit discounted. So I was waiting on Steam because I wanted to play it on my Steam Deck for it to be below $20. So every time a Steam summer sale, winter sale, October sale, Thanksgiving sale would come up, I'd immediately go to my wish list and check if the game was below $20. It finally was for this summer sale, so I finally got it. You can use the PlayStation 5 wish list feature the same way. So before the update, it was like a paltry amount of games that you could add to the list, and for price trackers, that's kind of annoying because you probably would fill it up very quickly. So then they upgraded it to something like 200 games, I think, that you could add to the wish list. And unfortunately, they broke the entire wish list feature as a whole, and it's been months since they addressed this and tried to fix it any other way. So that's annoying. They need to go back and fix it because it's an essential feature. Like obviously it's something people are using because they went through the time and energy to actually fix it to let you add more games to it, and then they just abandon it. Like they know it's broken because people have been complaining about it on sites like Push Square, X, and Reddit for over a month now, and they've just not said anything. So on the one hand, they got to go back and fix it. On the other hand, I've got a trick for you to actually interact with your wish list. You just have to add it to the welcome hub. It has a widget that you just add. I don't know if it's automatically there by default. I think it is, but if it's not, you just edit the screen and then add the widget for the wish list, and then you can scroll through it there and go to the store page for whatever game you want to click on. So there is a workaround, which is nice, but why is it broken? Why is it a basic essential feature of the PlayStation 5 that you recently went back and made better broken? I just don't get it. Anything that has to do with the internet on the PlayStation 5 seems to be held together by spit, paper mache, and duct tape. It's like the most rickety system ever, which is crazy because of how many subscribers they have and how much money they're absolutely raking in every single month through subscriptions to PS Plus Essential, Extra, and Premium. Like there's no excuse for it. It's just kind of weird because the PlayStation 5 and Pro are just such premium experiences. Like we've talked about Death Stranding a lot, and we'll talk about it in the next story, but like the way that that game looks and runs on the PlayStation 5 console, even the base model, is phenomenal. It might be one of the best looking and running games I've played this entire generation, and in terms of graphics, it's just one of the best looking games ever made. Hideo Kojima, I mean, his last 3 games all look and run phenomenal. Metal Gear Solid 5, amazing. Death Stranding 1, amazing. Death Stranding 2, amazing. It's just great to see the high quality games and performance coming out of PlayStation because their first party is absolutely phenomenal. And then you look at the internet side of things and it's like Concord, disaster. Fair Games, disaster. Using the PlayStation Network, disaster. Using the wish list on the PlayStation 5 console, disaster. Just take some time, get a big team together, and have them work on fixing the PlayStation Network. I mean, if you guys haven't been around as long as I have, like the small task of changing your PlayStation Network name was like building the atomic bomb for Sony. It took them multiple generations, and it still doesn't work correctly. Like if you go back and play games that don't have correct functionality, if you've changed your PlayStation PlayStation Network name, it'll show your old one with a huge string of numbers after it. So like they got there, but they had to do it in this weird ham-fisted duct tapey way that I just don't understand. I get that the PlayStation Network started with the PlayStation 3 and they're 2 generations past that and they've been building on top of it. So like at this point, they'd probably have to nuke it and start over, but you're Sony. You have an insane trillion yen market cap. Just spend the money because it makes things work how they should. And that should be your goal at the end of the day, especially when you want to be the Apple of gaming, which is apparently their goal now. Like they have everything looking unified and like premium and nice material design and everything. And it's like the little things matter. The little things like the PlayStation Network matter. Please go back and fix the wish lists. Hopefully someone at Sony is watching this video. I'm sure it'll come up on Sacred Symbols as well because, you know, they love talking about stuff like this. So maybe no one at Sony knows it's broken because they don't use their own system. I don't know. I just figured I should talk about it in a video to maybe let someone important there know. But yeah, sticking with Death Stranding 2, we got to talk about sales figures because this is super important. The reason Sony is going on and making so many live service games to throw at the wall and hopefully have one stick is because for some reason or another, people just aren't buying games anymore. You can tie it to things like $70 games. You can tie it to things like people not having a ton of money. The point is, it's a tougher sell when you don't have the momentum of the PlayStation 4 generation, when you don't have any PS5 games coming out that really take advantage of the console. And we're finally at that point, but they've lost a lot of the sales momentum they had where people were willing to go out of their way to play something that might be a little bit outside of their wheelhouse, like Death Stranding. And as of right now, we only have UK sales data. So over the weekend, this came out that it was selling physically at the very least 60% lower than the original Death Stranding. And it was even being beaten physically by Astrobot, which is crazy because Astrobot, while incredible, while winning a bunch of Game of the Year awards, isn't the sequel to the new IP from Hideo Kojima that once people actually spent some time with, whether they played it on PS Plus, Game Pass, or got it for free on Steam or got the $10 upgrade, ended up really enjoying it because it is a great game. So that was worrying, but then you got to kind of take a step back and realize that the amount of people who buy physical games is shrinking extremely fast. Like it's basically dead in the UK. Basically everyone buys their games digitally, especially in the UK. Like more people buy their games digitally in the UK since forever than they do in the United States. So I feel like most people who wanted to play Death Stranding 2 probably bought it digitally just to begin with, but Sony did something different with this game than they've done with any other first party game, and they sold early access. I think there was a way to get early access maybe by buying physically, but we all know if you buy a game on Amazon or Walmart or Target, the odds it actually gets to you on day one are becoming extremely low. I don't understand why. Like when I was in college 10 years ago now, I would order games on Amazon for pre-order, like Resident Evil 6, for example, and it would show up to my college's mailroom on day one at like 10 in the morning. But now I order stuff on Amazon and it doesn't show up at all. So like, I don't know what's going on there, but people have been trained to not really trust the pre-order systems that sites like Amazon have set up. So if you wanted the early access, which I know by Twitter, a lot of people did, you were more incentivized to buy the game digitally. So knowing that they sold the 3 days early access, knowing that people don't buy games physically as much anymore, I felt like the game was doing better than it was being positioned as because most people were probably buying it digitally. And then over the weekend, more data came out and it is selling extremely well. It knocked Mario Kart World, which was selling really well in the UK, down to second place, which is crazy because if you look at the Switch 2's launch, that's the really only Switch 2 game that you have to buy. Like, yeah, you can get Cyberpunk, but like everyone has Cyberpunk. Everyone's played Cyberpunk. Mario Kart World is the Switch 2 launch title, even counting things like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom's HD upgrades. If you're talking about brand new full-on first-party games for the Switch 2, it's Mario Kart World, and Death Stranding 2's launch was big enough to topple that. So clearly, people are showing up for Death Stranding 2, and that's good because it's an incredible game. Like, the story is a lot more focused, the gameplay is a lot more combat-oriented. I know the shut-ins on Twitter are like, oh, I love how the first game was not combat-oriented in any way. It sucks that everyone just wants games with action where you can beat up people and shoot them, but like, that's what's fun for me. Don't yuck my yum. I'm not yucking yours. I'm not playing Rematch and telling you how soccer should work. My bread and butter growing up was Metal Gear Solid games. So if I play a game from Hideo Kojima that has cool combat like Metal Gear Solid, I want that cool combat like Metal Gear Solid. I don't think that's that big of an ask. But getting back on track here, I'm glad this game is selling well, because traditionally with PlayStation, sequels always do worse for some reason. They didn't used to. Like in the PS4 generation, sequels like Uncharted 4 would be the biggest Uncharted game of all. But starting with The Last of Us 2 sold way less than The Last of Us 1. Spider-Man 2 sold way less than Spider-Man 1. I'm pretty sure God of War Ragnarok either broke even or sold a little less than God of War 2018. And I get that these games have less time to sell this many copies of games than they did in the past, but I think the theme between all of those games was massive controversy, which is crazy. Like Last of Us 2, the entire game leaked and a major character dies very early in the game that pissed people off. Spider-Man 2, as fun as the web wings were, as fun as the open world was, as great as it was having ray tracing on all the time, story was a mess. It was really bad. I did not like the story at all. It was like a character assassination of Peter Parker. Miles' story was boring at best and like a slog to play through at worst. So like there was controversy around that. God of War Ragnarok ratcheted up the sad dad saga a lot more and put the focus in weird places. I understand that, despite it being my favorite PlayStation exclusive of this generation. So like all these games had controversy that came from director freedom, which I understand, but sequels don't sell as well anymore. So it's nice to see we don't have the actual data to prove this, but just like from how much people have been talking about Death Stranding 2, I think it's at least selling very well. So hopefully we get some actual numbers from Sony that let us know how it's selling well digitally in the United States, the UK, and everywhere else, because I think it is doing better than the first game, which is surprising, but awesome. But that brings me to the third news story of today's video, which is about Resident Evil 9 Requiem. You guys know this is my most anticipated game basically for the next few years. I love Resident Evil more than any other franchise. I grew up with it. Resident Evil 4 and its remake are my favorite games of all time, and thankfully it doesn't look like Capcom is going too far out of the norm with this game, which is a little surprising, because if you keep up with the leaks, that Dusk Golem guy leaks everything from Resident Evil. I don't know how he gets all this info, but he's right on a lot of stuff. Like he's right, and he's right early, which is crazy. And one of his big rumors leading up to the announcement of Resident Evil Requiem was that it was going to be set in Singapore on an open island, and it was going to be a multiplayer open world game, very similar to something like Elden Ring Night Rain, and I was not on board for that. Like I'm fine with them going and making a Resident Evil multiplayer game. I actually want one from them that has more effort put into it than RE Reverse, which was terrible, and Resident Evil Resistance, which was a good idea that was just executed very poorly. I think they've done multiplayer right in the past with Resident Evil Outbreak. I just played through that on my Steam Deck and it's really cool and ahead of its time. So like I wish they would dedicate a team in a studio to making a multiplayer Resident Evil game. I just don't want it as a mainline Resident Evil 9 entry. I want them to stick to the formula that works, make a survival horror game that's awesome and scary. That's all I want from Resident Evil's mainline games. And thankfully, as we've seen from this new developer video where they not only showed gameplay, but talked about characters who are going to show up, they said that they tried the open world game, it didn't work out. They realized fans didn't want it. They listened to their fans like they did with the people who bitched and moaned about Resident Evil 7 being too scary for 8. And they said, okay, we're going to go back to the drawing board. We're going to rebuild it from the ground up and we're going to make a traditional Resident Evil game. Now, the weird thing is they actually directly addressed whether or not Leon was going to be in the game, because that was another big rumor we've heard a lot about. And it was really funny. They were like, this game's trying to be scary. It's dealing with psychological horror. You're crawling around this Victorian era hospital and it's like a scary environment. And we wanted a character who would be scared in that environment. So we came up with Grace Ashcroft. She's like a timid person. Things scare her, like a bucket falling off a chair would scare the shit out of her, I guess. That would not happen to Leon. Leon was like, oh, there's zombies here? I'm not going to think about how humans are the real enemy, like in The Last of Us or whatever. I'm just going to blow their brains out, suplex them, kick them, chainsaw them, shotgun them, snipe them, do ungodly things to them, and rack up a combo while I do it in Mercenaries mode. Like Leon is not scared of anything after what he went through in Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4. So if you're trying to make a psychological based Resident Evil game, he wouldn't really fit. And I agree with that. I just think they're misdirecting a lot because, you know, they're going to pull in some major mainline character. They did it in 7 with Chris Redfield. He came in at the end and looked completely different, which was really weird. And then in Resident Evil Village, he comes in and shoots Mia in the head during the intro cutscene, which was insane. Like, that is still my favorite Resident Evil clip, when he's like, don't worry about it, Ethan, and just uses his Beretta or whatever to just unload into who Ethan thinks is his wife. There's like a minor spoiler that she was like a clone by the mold of Mia, but it was still crazy. So there's no way Grace is the only returning character, or new character, I guess, like the only character in Requiem. I think Leon is going to show up, and they're trying to save a big reveal because Dust Golem leaked it. I wish the leaks would stop, honestly, but now that I know, I want to talk about it. But I think Leon is going to be in Resident Evil Requiem for sure. And honestly, I'm glad they didn't go with the open world idea, because as we've seen with Monster Hunter Wilds and Dragon's Dogma 2, as good as the Resident Evil engine looks, it doesn't run all that well in open world scenarios. It just doesn't work right. It runs poorly frame rate wise, and like the CPU gets hammered when you have too many NPCs. So like, I don't think it would run all that well. And in closing it in a tight space, very similar to what you had in 7 and 8, giving you the option between third person and first person, I think they're doing everything right with this game, and I could not be more excited about it. So thanks for letting me gush once again about Resident Evil Requiem. I'm not going to talk about stuff unless there's new things, but thankfully Capcom loves to market their games, so I'm sure we'll have more stuff to talk about soon. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.